Yeah, that wasn't big. That's like.
I can call the meeting to order. Call stand. Teresa, would you lead us in invocation?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to meet here this morning. We ask for your wisdom and guidance as we discuss and make decisions. And we meet here in the spirit of treating each other with respect and courtesy. In your heavenly name, amen.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're at this citizen comments. Does anyone wish to address the board?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Chris Johnson. I own property at 36 Wilderness Trail. I just came through this board. I did a bad job of attending the meeting, but we came through and asked to utilize regional detention as a part of tearing down the old residence there and building a new residence. Our request for regional detention was denied because our property is 5.3 acres, and the decision of the board was that our property was too large to utilize the regional detention program. I've come today because I've learned that next door to 36 Wilderness Trail, Tanos Development is going to put in a 39-acre development consisting of 42 lots. And at least according to what the proposal is as part of the development with the city of Friendswood, is that Mr. Tanos intends to use regional detention for all 42 of those lots. So I'm here because I'm concerned, one, that there's going to be a roadway right next to my property, but also that the intent seems to be that there's going to be 42 lots on a 40-acre parcel utilizing regional detention. I understand that this board, the work that happens here often happens unnoticed by the public, and that it's very important. And I appreciate everybody's service in making sure, I think in a lot of cases, saving us from ourselves to make sure that the decisions we make in developing this community doesn't lead to more flooding and more disasters. So I appreciate that the decisions you have to make are tough ones, but I also want to encourage this board to be consistent in what it does. We respected the board's decision with regard to not allowing us to utilize regional detention over essentially a 0.3 acre differential. It would be very disappointing to us and a lot of the neighbors in Wilderness Trail if there wasn't on-site detention for this property. When Hines had this property under contract, they had detention ponds on all of their land planning. There isn't a one on this land plan. So it is of great concern to us that we came to this board, we asked to use the regional detention on a much smaller property where we weren't going to really increase the impervious cover very much. And we were told no, and that's okay if if the board's going to be consistent in that decision making. I understand it and I respect it. And we went to the engineer. We worked with Scott to make sure that we had a good detention plan. We're going to have on-site detention for our single-family residential home, but we want to make sure, and I just want to say that I want the board to understand that we appreciate this work. We just are hoping that there will be consistency in the decision that the decisions the board makes, especially when it comes to detention issues in this area. Because if we're going to put 42 lots on the ground with no on-site detention, I think we're going to have a problem. And I think it'd be pretty inconsistent for the board to say, hey, the property right next door can't have regional detention, but all 42 of these lots can. So I appreciate the board's work. I know that this is a thankless job. I know that you have tough decisions to make. I just hope that when you do make them, that they're consistent. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris. In response, that situation has not come before the board.
I understand it's not on the agenda today. I wanted to make sure that I haven't been good about coming to these meetings, and I'm going to do good about coming to these meetings. And so I appreciate the time letting me speak at the.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the board?
I
Yes,
have.
ma'am.
And actually, half my speech is gone now, so he took care of it for me, which is good because I'm nervous. So I also live on Wilderness Trail, and I read well, I always watch the meetings after the fact. I should go, but I didn't make it this time. But I did see where there was not going to possibly be a on-site detention site at the Estates of Wilderness Trail. That acreage is 39 acres of pretty much hay fields. For the last 55 years, that homeowner had hay fields in there, and before that was rice fields. So all the water that fell in there, sat there, soaked in, minimal runoff. And so I have a concern if it is going to run to Detention Creek, whatever. I live on Sugar Creek. I already know what happens in the last 25 years I've been there. The detention pond and the creek are level. And so when I can see the detention pond from my living room window, I know it's time to start doing an extra bunch of praying. So as we've said, we know it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to come and say, if it does come to this, that the people on the south side or the creek side of Wilderness Trail really do need some help with the flooding. So on-site detention would be a way to help that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5. Discussion and action item. Discuss and consider approval of the request to use a combination gravity pump detention pond for a 4.62 acre development located on FM 2351 Daniel Scott Engineering LLC. On this item, what I'd like to do is have the board conceptually approve or disapprove the use of a gravity pump system, and then table the criteria. I don't believe we've had enough discussion or thought on the criteria. And if that's acceptable with y'all, would somebody make a motion? If not, we'll take the whole thing as it is.
I'll make the motion.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have discussion on this. I don't want to put the cart before the horse on this deal. I thought about it a lot on your language, Scott, that you proposed. And I know we're going to talk about the criteria a little bit. We have in the meeting, last meeting, we were talking about it, but I think in the interest of development and the way we should do things, we're not a financial institution here. We should have a bond equal to 2 times the value of the pumping system. That will be cheaper for the people in the future if we approve these issues at case by case. It will be a better route to go. It doesn't make them put up all the money for the pump, but it does make them put up a bond, like a surety bond or a performance bond that will pay us, the district, double the value. So it's a penalty for not keeping up with it, which they should, because these things will be approved, just like you are talking about y'all's issue. These things will be approved case by case by the board. They're not a sure thing. Along with
Rusty, those are really part of the conditions.
right. Well, that's what the thing is.
Motion is on the conceptual approval.
Yeah, it's just, I want to make sure that we're heading the right direction. We conceptually approve something.
Okay, that's fair.
So I just want to make sure that we've read his language. His language has been put out in the public. It's in the agenda, so y'all can read this stuff.
It's definitely open for discussion, right?
Absolutely. It's in our packet, so it's open for discussion. It's right here. So, if it's in our packet, we should be able to discuss it. Public packet. So it's right here. So I think having a bond work double. I think biannual reports to Joseph so it doesn't overburden him with have to sift through things. And I don't have a problem with preliminary conceptual approval, plain preliminary approval, because there's no plans. But I would like to sharpen up the conditions and the language that we're going to talk about later. So I want to make sure that we are indeed going to do that.
Well,
I have several questions when we get to the point that we talk about the details of the conditions.
as a matter of fact, the concern I've got is that we shouldn't have a routine inspection. We all do it on a weather report when we have a big rain to be sure the thing's empty. So, there's a lot of discussion to be had about that. But in order to keep from holding up any developer's timeline, I thought it might be more appropriate just to do conceptual approval. Yeah, we will entertain it with conditions to follow.
So there's some caveats here, Scott,
Sure.
for the client to understand that they're proceeding with this. However, there's no guarantee that the board will either approve the preliminary, approve the final, and there's no guarantee that they might want to meet, because there's other things that Teresa or Jim or Lonnie or Kevin might have. I mean, there's still talk about the backup system, the plug versus the generator. There's a lot of things that still need to be discussed on this.
In the fines.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, so the approval, right, the request is to allow the hybrid system. The motion is to approve that, but under the caveat that the board is gonna come up with the constraints in the near future. Correct. So,
And there still has to be a final vote of approval, of course. Yeah.
well, on the preliminary and final drainage.
Right,
Correct.
correct. Absolutely, yeah. And so
But this allows them to use that methodology, that system.
Kevin asked me to voice his concern that he wanted the conditions to be a case-by-case basis instead of being put in our design.
So the option to use the pump gravity system is in the DCM as case by case.
Yes,
Okay, I think it would be beneficial to the board to have your pump conditions as part of the DCM for whenever you do consider the use and it is approved. That's my
I
opinion.
agree with that.
that'll be
Absolutely.
up to the board.
Absolutely.
That'll be a board vote. So
Yes, absolutely.
we'll get to that. For now, it seems like the motion by Jim is for them to proceed, but however, they're proceeding in kind of an area where there's no guarantee of any final approval because we're early on. And this is what I kind of want. We're kind of early on in developing our criteria. We haven't got our criteria completely nailed down yet. So it is a little cart before the horse. I'm not completely opposed to it. I'll go on record and saying that opposed to it under certain conditions. I'm not for it all the time. I would like to have some criteria that we can agree on as a board and nail that down. But however, it might not fit for every piece of land in Friendswood. Every piece of land in Friendswood does not need to be developed. I know people don't want to hear that, but we don't have to develop every green spot in Friendswood. So sometimes we might not want to do that. So I don't want to hem us into having to approve something based on the criteria manual.
That's why having the basic criteria in the manual, if the situation wouldn't fit, then they would know not to try to proceed.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be some basic criteria that a developer could go to see, is this even an option for me
Sure.
before they get too far down the road?
Yeah. And I think just, have it in there that it's case by case basis like it is, that you have to come to the board for them to consider the use before you proceed to preliminary plan. That gives the board an opportunity to say yay or nay, looking at the constraints of the site. That's what.
See, unlike other things where there's criteria that meets it, these are usually going to be tight spaces or smaller places where they don't have room for regular detention that meets the district's criteria already. There's a reason that we don't have this in our system, in our criteria manual already. So I just want to make sure, even though we have criteria in our manual, it's not gonna and make us approve everything that comes down the pipe and every green. I don't want to hem us. We have to maybe talk to Scott about that, our district attorney. We don't want to hem ourselves in. They have to approve pump detention systems based on the criteria. We self-impose on ourselves every single time because we get ourselves in a jam if we don't approve it. So we're going to thread it.
That should not be in the design criteria manual. It's case by case basis.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good discussion. Like I said, I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but I think it's important that we have this discussion in public about what we're thinking.
Yeah, the city still has to, we would have to fill out a design modification form with the city, the developer will, and the city will have to approve it as well. So this is just the first step.
But I still think we need to have the opportunity to say, if we go down this path, this is what it needs to look like, and these are the requirements you have to meet. I do think we need to have that, whether it be in the manual or as an addendum, or if we, on the case by case basis, decide to proceed, we can hand it to them and say, this is what you have to do.
Correct.
But I think that needs to be spelled out.
The DD4 has that, that's, you know, pump retention is gotta be board approved, you know, before you proceed. And here's your criteria for pump stormwater retention if you're, you know, approved to use it.
Okay, where I think this leaves us, if we approve the motion, we've told the developer, yes, you can go with the hybrid system, but you've got to agree to the conditions that are going to follow later,
Correct.
Which we're not really sure what
which
they're.
we're not sure what are.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we give them some kind of a timeline on when they can expect us to provide those?
Hopefully
conditions?
next meeting.
Okay,
Do you need to amend the motion?
No, I thought that's what the motion was.
I'll leave the motion like it is so we can decide, because if we have it by next meeting, great, and we should, but if we don't, like I said, we need to come to a consensus on that and have a board vote on it. So there might be a vote on the next agenda, to be honest with you. So
Everybody, those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous? Okay, thank you, guys. Consent agenda, does anyone have anything that needs to take out of the consent agenda?
No.
There was one thing on the tax vote. It didn't list Rusty's name. It said 4 voted for and no, and didn't have his name.
on the minutes,
Yeah.
okay.
I take care of that. Thank you. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve with that amendment?
so moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Operation managers report. Joseph?
Well, it's been kind of slow for a change with the weather, so I got back to work yesterday, but, still working on, Mary's Creek at the Baptist Church. Got the concrete poured, started pouring at Dunbar on the slope paving, and started pouring the, pilot channels and the overflow channel on detention pond 1. Mowing crew's been hit and miss right now. It's because of the weather, but they're catching up. And what we're seeing is too, when we got the rain and stuff, some of the trees started falling. So the ground got wet. So we've been busy getting trees. The barge has been working. They probably now are right around 6,000 cubic yards that they've been able to get out. And so that's moving along good. They about got everything fixed on the barge now, so they're not breaking down once a week or so. So that's a good thing. But other than that, that's all I have. Unless y'all have anything from. Oh, and we did get the hydro a lot of the area of Mary's Creek, so we did get that done.
Anybody have any questions for Joseph?
How much longer do you think the barge is going to be rolling? For a while, what's your estimate? 3 or 4 more months?
Oh, yeah, easy.
Joseph, can you give an update on the Castlewood project?
Yeah, on detention 1, they're finishing pouring the concrete there. Once they get done with that, we'll hydromulch that. And then on detention pond 3, which is 2 queens, they're in the process of digging it now. And once they get that one completed, then we'll go to that's what, 301.
Last one.
Anyone else have any questions?
Do we have any thing to report on Frenchman's Creek? Is it
Not at this time.
The cities are down, the counties are still up. And when Kevin and I last talked to the county is they said they would get the rest of the condos down the back of Polly Ranch and Frenchman's Creek before the new year. So that could mean November, could mean December, and you all know weather related, but when they start, it took them about 3 weeks, I think, for the city to get theirs down. So I would look for those condos to come down before the end of the year, is all the county would promise.
Thank you, Joseph. Kathy, administrative.
Just, we have our investment training on Thursday, and I'll be sending you the links just to make sure you have them tomorrow. Because your email is different.
The cash flow analysis is in the check summary. So if you guys have time.
Yeah, I'm gonna start entering that every meeting.
So spoke with WGA yesterday. Ken Black is, he's gonna look at the model one more time. We've got it's like a 0.01 foot blip they see at the 25-year storm event. And they're trying to get rid of that before we can move forward on finalizing the plans, pipe size. That's on the Whitaker Basin. Friendswood, Forest Friendswood Attention Pond expansion, coordinating with SMC still some wetlands issues. So we're trying to figure out the best route to go, and we'll be able to report back to the board soon regarding that. So, other than that, that's all I have. We've got some reviews coming in for Friendswood Trails, their final plans, because their DIA was approved last month. So they're looking to move forward with the next couple sections.
I know there's some other things we're working on, and so maybe we can get some reports back on maybe some regional detention facilities we're looking at. Maybe we can talk about that, where we're looking to go, and we can get maybe more specific on that as we move down the road for people. So I look forward to hearing from that here in the next 3 or 4 meetings.
Yep.
Anything else for Scott? Thank you. City of Friendswood.
I have a few updates. I'm Samantha Heritas. I'm the Deputy Director of Engineering. So for the the Friendswood Regional Detention Basin, formerly we called FM 1959, there's a rough grading project that is a smaller portion of the entire project that is going to be bid for construction on October 13th. The preliminary engineering report for the final project will be wrapping up this month. We're just waiting on a small, we're waiting on some environmental, like the environmental report to wrap up so that can be included. There's going to be a public meeting that will be scheduled here soon to go over what the project will look like. Forest Bend, we had a community block development grant disaster recovery from Hurricane Harvey. That project is complete. For Frenchman's Creek, we already touched on that a little bit, but the city will need the homeowners association to turn over the property before we can work on an interlocal agreement with the Galveston, with GCCDD. That should occur here soon. We don't have a date. So we had an infrastructure community development block grant, also disaster recovery grant from Harvey that included 2 projects, a Deepwood flood control project and then the utility rack relocation project. For Deepwood, the preliminary engineering report was completed. The acquisition for that project has been scaled down based on what we originally were hoping for. So there's 5 properties that we know that are going to be acquired, and the infrastructure grant is going to just be a clearing project at that site. The city is working to complete the environmental assessment on that project now, and then it will bid for construction. The utility relocation project, we've had the we've had the engineering complete on that for a while. We will be completing the EA, the environmental assessment for that here soon, and then it will go to the general land office for review. And then once we receive the authorization to use grant funds, that will also bid for construction. We're guessing that, so we're actually having to file an extension for both of those projects. The environmental assessment and the fact that the Deepwood project has been dependent on the acquisition grant project really kind of slowed the whole process down. But we're thinking that for both those, it's probably 30 to 34 weeks, hopefully without, any additional delays, that those will wrap up. For Deepwood, we are working on an interlocal agreement right now that we will be, sending over to GCCDD. There's several properties in that area that are already owned by either the city or GCCDD, so there'll be a larger project that'll occur at that area. We have completed on our side an interlocal agreement for Quaker's Landing, and we'll be sending that over here soon for GCCDD to review. So we've received notice that we've been awarded several grants recently. We received notice that we will be awarded a grant application that's located in Analia. It would be upgrading or not upgrading, upsizing the storm sewer and reconstructing the water lines along Virginia Lane and Ella Court. The storm sewer lines would extend to Marianne. And then there's also a water tank project that will be awarded, elevated storage tank 2, which is adjacent to the animal shelter. And we also received notice that we are going to receive a portable generator. And then we've touched on it a little bit, but the other item we found out is that we've been awarded a grant for the master drainage plan. Since we already had an interlocal with the drainage district, we talked to them and they said that's great. They're all on board with the regional project, but I will be sending an invite for a meeting so we can figure out how we want to handle the interlocal, moving forward. If the funding amount that GCCDD is interested in committing will be the same, if we want to expand the scope of that project, perhaps to include areas outside of the floodplain, or if we want to keep the original scope we submitted and adjust the amount that GCCDD is committing. So I'll send an invite for that here soon. We just kicked off a project to update our design criteria manual. With all these grant awards that have come up lately, it's been really busy. We really haven't gotten to dig into that, but we will also be updating our criteria manual and working to coordinate with GCCDD and Harris County Flood Control District. So lots of stuff.
Thank you very much, Samantha.
Hill did
Any questions?
Hill did a victory lap of sorts at city council today. You said we're belling a roll on the grant program. So, no, that's good. That's good. Because that a lot of y'all's hard work, sometimes the grants are fleeting. They're hard to get qualify for. So I appreciate that. When you said that, I was like, I looked at my wife and I said, so we're finally getting some W's in this column. So that's nice. It's good to hear, and it's good to hear it's going towards.
Yeah, I guess
drainage.
one other item. So when we signed the interlocal agreement for the Friendswood Regional Stormwater Detention Basin, the Wickham property was also included if we were to receive a 10 million direct funding allocation from the state. So we've heard that will be happening. And we still don't have a timeline on when, unless you've heard otherwise, Hill. But once that occurs, we will be kicking off the preliminary engineering report for a terracing and offline detention project at the Wickham property. And we are already coordinating with the developer on that property so that the detention pond that they will be building for their development, that they're going to oversize it greatly to also account for the terracing project that we'll be building there. So there's a lot of coordination going on there between the city and Harris County Flood Control District.
Jim, on that one, that's one we talked about a long time ago on this board, at the old board. But I'm glad it's going to go through. I hope it does, because that's the one where I believe they have I want y'all to pay attention in the future, the language backwards, where if they didn't approve the detention, they weren't going to approve the terracing. And I think it's very important for Friendswood and our district that terracing is always separate from just detention, because terracing, in my opinion, is probably more important through Clear Creek than detention, because detention overflows, terracing conveys. So it looks like we're going to get that done. But in that language, if you remember, that grant language was if they disapproved one thing, the terracing part was going to go over too. I'm almost positive I have that in my mind correctly, but just keep that in mind in the future when you are going for grants, that they're not always linked together. Because I would hate to lose our terracing projects and our ability to terrace because we don't get the grant money because it's linked to something else.
Yeah, point. Any other questions for Samantha? Thank you very much. Matt?
Good morning, everyone. From the League City perspective, just an update on Westland Ranch. Last Friday, I accepted the 5th section of Westland Ranch, which is section 4. So that section is, authorized to move forward with lots. Along with that came the acceptance of the north-south collector, which is Magnolia Bayou, and then the east-west connection to McFarland was also accepted. So those 3 projects have formally been completed. The Westland Ranch Development currently is working on section 2, which is a section directly west of section 4. And forgive me, all these various section numbers are running together in my head. You guys have probably seen some of the plats come through for some of the southern pieces that are going on. I had a conversation with Dan and Baum yesterday, and they anticipate getting some resubmittals to me for the section 6A and 6B of the southern piece down there. And of course, there's a roadway extension of Magnolia Bayou that's required for that, and some detention work. So that development's moving along nicely. So that's all I got for today, unless you guys got any questions or concerns for me.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Thank you. Peggy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've given myself a personal goal. My report will be shorter than Samantha's. So let's help me meet my goal here. Dickinson Watershed Steering Committee, we had a report. Rusty attended and represented our group. So if Rusty wants to report on anything that came out of the Dickinson Watershed Steering Committee, I'll ask him to do that. On the Bayhat panel that we had for the Coastal Texas study, it was standing room only. It was really outstanding. The panelists were great. Dr. Kay spoke very eloquently about the status of the project. There was some information that the Corps reported that the Texas Tribune and the Houston Chronicle immediately picked up. So Teresa was able to join us for that meeting, and I will ask her if she wishes to report on that. So tomorrow I sent you a notice. The Galveston, see, I got you guys on the brain. The Gulf Coast Protection District is having their monthly meeting. I did review the agenda, and it does look like it's a fairly standard reporting, but I'll be prepared to report back to you at the next meeting. The Gulf Coast Protection District Trust Fund, if you remember, that's the bill that Representative Dennis Paul was sponsoring. It passed. And then after the legislature adjourned, Governor Abbott vetoed it. I did verify yesterday that bill is not on the call for the special session. So as of right now, we were hearing some good news that maybe we could adjust the language and it would be brought forward, but that does not seem to be the case. And then this morning at 11 o'clock, we are scheduled to have the Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee meeting. I noticed that Harris County Flood Control District is trying to reach me. Normally when they call me, it's not that it's like great news, everything's going well. So I am just thinking, I'll be positive, thinking everything's going well, and we're still on path to have our 11 o'clock Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee meeting. Invite all of you. If you are not on the distribution list to get an invite, please let me know and I will add you. And that concludes my report. And Samantha, I think I beat you this time, kiddo.
Thank you. Both of y'all's report was very informative.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Diana, just one little piece to Peggy's report. What came out of that panel discussion, and for a lot of people, even before then, was the fact that Coastal Protection District, the cost for putting everything in is going up because of the delays. Originally, it was estimated at 34 billion. And I think everybody danced a little bit when they heard the new estimate because of the delays is 57 billion. Well, with wars going on in Ukraine and Israel and all of our financial commitments, I'm not too positive about us being able to run to Congress and get them to buy into all that. I think the word going out is they're looking for ways to make little pieces of that work. And again, I'd urge this board along with the city and League City to get together and talk about the needs of the Lower Clear Creek project. And what we might be able to take out of that. We might be able to take the pumps and the gates for Clear Lake and Dickinson Bayou out of that project and bring it over to a tenth the cost. We might be talking about 5 billion instead of 57 billion to get those pieces in. So I won't go on and on about it, but that cost increase is a significant problem to getting these projects done.
Thank you, Don. Peggy, is that anything the Clear Creek committee would entertain looking at?
The suggestion about pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will tell you that discussion has been underway for quite a while. When we talk about the Lower Clear Creek and Dickinson watershed studies, we always talk about the projects that are contained therein. And as I reported last time, the Corps is looking at various funding mechanisms to accelerate perhaps some of the smaller projects that are included in the in our study, in our Lower Clear Creek and Dickinson watershed studies, and we continue to have those discussions. I do think in looking at the big picture, and I believe we've all had those discussions, we recognize that there are different areas of opportunity to explore where we can more readily get funding and move forward on any aspect of a project. I just verified that Anthony Toledo from League City will be attending our Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee meeting this morning, and he will be prepared to report on the status of anything that's happening on our feasibility studies. So Jim, in answer to your question, I think no matter how positive the news is or how negative the news appears to be, I think in light of so many challenges we have at different levels, we ought to always be as informed as we can on the different avenues and be willing to support the entities that are moving forward on any element of the project. And that's why I think it's really important, as your schedules allow and you can attend meetings, whether it's where the Corps has a very strong presence, or you're looking at a meeting where just the municipalities are supporting, that you have a voice there. And I've always said, I endorse anything that moves a project forward that impacts our region positively. And I think if we look at what's going on at the federal level right now, the uncertainty, the state levels, we've just got to be preparing ourselves for whatever breaks loose in an opportunity, that we grasp that. And to close this, the discussions with the Corps continue because the Corps internally has over $1 billion that's not been allocated for the bipartisan infrastructure law. And that is very important, because what we're really asking, and we've talked to the Corps about, is of that $1 billion you have, could we possibly have about $250 million for the Gulf Coast Protection District to move forward on our activities? And so all of those discussions are in play. And I would say that wherever any of us become aware of an opportunity to speak positively for our area in the region, we ought to work among ourselves and be sure that we have a voice at the table.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To Don's point about people trying to segment the project, notice that Galveston, city of Galveston is looking at a levee pump system around the populated part of the island. So people are starting to think maybe $7 billion is too much. So,
And I'll just follow up on that, Jim. And when we were in DC talking about trying to get appropriations approved, that was the exact message we were receiving from OMB. In order to move forward, the Corps and the Gulf Coast Protection District ought to be exploring those parts of the project that are the smaller dollar amounts, and let's break it up in smaller segments. So that was very definite direction we received from OMB. And then to follow up, the state of Galveston is going to have a state of Galveston report, and I'm sure that that's going to be some component of the mayor's report. Yeah, thank you.
thank you very much.
Well, and I think it's really significant to think about the Gulf Coast Protection District. They have taxing authority, and the state gave them taxing authority up to a nickel. But with the new estimate out, that nickel is nowhere close to what we need for the local share. And so it's a real problem, where when we come up with some money locally to meet our share, even if the federal government came up with the money to meet their share, it's a big question mark right now.
I agree. Okay, thank you. Board of Directors report, Lonnie?
Well, following up on what Peggy was saying, I'm going to be sitting in on the watershed steering committee meeting today for Kevin.
Good.
Only since he's sick.
Russell?
Yeah, I have several things. Thanks, Jim, for running the meeting. Appreciate it today. I've known him a long time, so I gave him a hard time before the meeting. I'm not running it with the gavel, but I appreciate Jim for running the meeting. Sitting those new people, new faces here. Thank you very much for coming. Chris, Margaret, is that right? Yep. Okay, Kathy's here, Jason's here, Don's here, but everybody but the citizens that are here, it's nice to have. I think we had some good conversations. To follow up, Don and I talked about this a little bit, and I will say, remember, the same third of Friendswood and the same third of Pearland, League City, this whole Clear Creek watershed down to the coast floods every time. It's the same people flooding every time, even happens in Harris County. The new stuff we're building in League City, stuff that was working standards, and it's probably going to be good. Nothing's for sure in this area, as y'all know, but we're doing well with our new developments. But we're mitigating the same old third of Friendswood and the same pieces that flood through Dickinson every flood over the last 50 years. So it's important for us to come up with smaller bite solutions that aren't 800 million, $65 billion, whatever they are. I've talked to Don about this, but through the state and stuff, the feds and stuff should help us mitigate this part of our city of Friendswood. I'm a representative of the Galveston Consolidated Drainage District and the city of Friendswood primarily, with the portions of Lake City coming online. I don't think we're gonna have problems out there. I hope, knock on wood, building to higher standards. But back in the day, we didn't. I was one of them. These people flood and they're worried about it last time. Margaret said they're worried every time. We have to mitigate and solve those older issues and those people's issues. It's important. So how we do that through smaller bites, I've always been a big proponent of that because we represent this area. I know we're doing good work in Galveston and we have drainage districts down there and city down there and stuff. We need to do the same, but we need to look out for this third of the city and our developments in this district that affects our citizens we represent. That's paramount. But I don't want to get off that, and we need to have a focus on that. If we can do it through the committees and Clear Creek committees, I'm all for it. But if we can't, we need to do it as a district and have a good voice and work with the state and the feds to mitigate problems that have been getting worse and worse the last 5 decades. I'm going to stay with that. And we probably can't solve it with our local tax money, to answer that question, Doug. There's no way. But anyway, thank you all for coming and I appreciate it. And go ahead. You got the question.
Just for the record and for people who may not know, could you take a moment to mention Chief Wieners?
Yes. So Chief Winter, we just attended his birthday party across the street. Matter of fact, just last month, I believe. Yeah, it was 2 months. It was soon. He is resigning. He has a cancer diagnosis, which unfortunately I'm all too familiar with, but I want everybody to keep him in his prayers. He's done good things for the city. He's always represented. He's always been kind to people that I know. And he's a big proponent of Friendswood and keeping us. We have a great, safe community. As you can tell, we're always up there in the safety. So it's a great community. This place is wonderful. So I appreciate his service. And if y'all keep him in his prayers, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rusty. Teresa?
Yes, I will be participating in the Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee meeting. I will be attending virtually today. And likewise, the Gulf Coast Protection District meeting tomorrow, I will attend virtually as well. The BayHep presentation, the panel discussion, a lot has already been said. I found it to be a very interesting and informative presentation, and I do agree that it is time to start looking at segmenting these projects into smaller, more achievable segments. One other thing to mention this coming Sunday is the Friendswood Rotary has their regatta, and it'll be interesting to see if the participants from previous years notice a difference this year. Paddling down Clear Creek, thanks to all the work we've done with the barge and the debris removal. So.
Thank you, Teresa. I have a piece of good news. Kevin has finally gotten Harris County Flood Control's attention about the possibility of losing Galveston County's money, and has a commitment from Scott Elmer, which is the head of the engineering for Harris County Flood, to have the project, the small project that Samantha related to the Harris County Commissioners Court at the November meeting. So if that's approved, then it looks like we can move dirt before the end of the year. So that's great news. That's all I had. Joseph, do we have anything?
No, sir.
Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all for coming.
No, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Good point.
Okay, with where? Brentwood?
Yeah, the building is Brentwood.
Oh, okay.
I'm from Brentwood. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I know. My commercial clients, we're getting taxed. Yes, that's the other Yes.
Need to get your name.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, I'm finally got. My house is all being built and now we develop it.
Better give me a call. I don't know.
I think
This thing.
I'm not listening. No, I apologize. Okay, that's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say.
Just so you know, I'm fixing it.
Initially, I feel like.
That's Wednesday.
Hey, thanks for time.
But that's what
I'm so glad.
50 years.
Sorry, I missed the,
You know what it is. Yeah, thanks to this. You know, Facebook. I take that as a badge of honor.
Comes to work, the big dog.
You met Lonnie.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming. And like I said, I knew there was different about the meeting. I told him, I said, it's a problem making sure what sounds like. It's not here to be here.
Preparation.
One little process. And then he goes. That's where they were starting. For me, it's slowly.
Yeah, football season and ball time. Yeah.
You say that.
Yeah.
5 days.
Like just school. I'll do it. Like,
Okay. Absolutely. I like that somebody has to have a like today. That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I know. It's good if you have the next meeting as well. No, I'm just, yes, I bet she's coming, I think.
That's so awesome. I don't believe it. Yeah, I'm ready to get back to studying. Now that it's finally cooling down, it's like, that's the best. That's my son was like, we just build a fire outside.
I
I'm like,
I do think so. I don't know how.
It's sitting here and there's subdivision. I think it's.
City water. just put now.
City water, they got city.
Because I've been here on flag, but so.
Yeah.
Well, it's like.
I know it didn't finish. I'm not saying it doesn't. It was nice, and it's nice that we had some winds going on, so I don't think I didn't notice that. I was sitting there. I noticed the other night. I don't think I didn't notice that. And I was glad. I was like, you should find a place to do it. You said that, you want everybody because.
And so it's nice. It's bad. It's back and forth.
It's something through five groups.
As soon as it turned.
Okay, so I had to say this because I had to. pay.
So I didn't have, which one do you get? Which one do you get?
Vanilla,
Sued
slim and trim. Yeah.
Her after possession affidavit, so the real.
Oh, okay.
What's under what's on?
Okay. I know that's stinky, but that's not. That's not crazy.
Clearly. It's post trial.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Chris Johnson. Johnson. Johnson.
Some too, he takes some, that's impressive. Yeah.
Lonnie Cox.
The main side.
This property. Scott. So talking about the. So. I met some Cheryl and said, hey, listen, we should get together because we're already in the experience.
Okay.
I guess Thursday is.
I'll get Scott. That's the most serious kind.
Her name gets.
I haven't looked at it, but I was thinking about looking at a picture.
God bless her.
I can only think of like one or two that we haven't been awarded.
And she's.
There's some that,
Think about it. We're-
others in, city of it,
Somebody goes to file something.
It started today as a consulting firm.
I know,
And
right?
making obscene amount of money in the private sector every year.
I appreciate.
Are you gonna do it? Are you doing it?
Watch our language and how.
Yeah.
That and she's sitting on the state, but. Language on the qualifications, especially.
Oh, I'm almost done.
Somebody make me a proponent. I'll do it for you, say, hey, look, I'm gonna assume that didn't work.
Are you-
Because that's how
okay.
legislation was enforced. And they.
Yeah, I do that. Go to the office and.
We drive down here every day, which just.
Give it a little-
Nice, low flying, but you know, they.
Meeting Thursday, I'm doing that from home. So, yeah. Yeah. No, I. Okay.
I can't get those guys.
Yeah.
Having people except for they're all of us and working together, had a bunch of them. It's a short time, short list.
We got some signs.
This area, I paint sand, then attention.
Years.
Close.
Before you.
It's gonna be short.
The people down
That's
there.
another thing. is-
Well, I hope I'll-
Look down, I'll say, make sure we're on the same page.
I said, okay.